Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the continuation of the contract labor negotiations between the city of Boise and the Boise Police Department Union. My name is Courtney Washburn. I'm the chief of staff for the city of Boise. If everybody wouldn't mind going around and introducing themselves for the record, I would appreciate it.
Todd Hanchett with Stoll Reeves on behalf of the city.
Ron Weininger, Chief of Police.
Audrey Schiller, Stoll Reeves.
Vince Champion, Regional Director for the International Brotherhood of Police Officers.
AJ Veens, Police Union.
Darren Lee, Police Union.
Damon Jones, Police Union.
Chad Johnson, Bert Challam, Harstead and Johnson, Union Attorney.
Thank you.
All right, nice to see everyone. I think from our standpoint, I thought we would start with kind of a recap of where we are and what we covered last time. So, because it has been a little while, at our last meeting, the city provided responses to, I think there were 6 union proposals that we left with you as of our last meeting. We also provided our economic proposals as well as made a presentation about the city budget and the budget process. Today we have a few more proposals that we're prepared to pass. And so unless there's anything that you want to do that you want to cover before we do that, I'm prepared to go ahead and do that now.
If you have new proposals on the third bargaining session, we can do those first before we address your previous proposals.
Okay.
We can do that.
All right. So let me go ahead and do that. I just passed city proposal 19, and this has to do with training. And as you're opening it, did that come through okay?
I'm not seeing it. I don't know if someone else is seeing it.
All right.
Is anyone else seeing it?
I have it.
Yeah. The last one was April 11th. On yours for the time being.
Everybody has it. All right, so the change there, this is section 4 E sub 1, and the proposed change is in the subsection F, and it has to do with missed mandatory paid training without a valid excuse. The proposed language change would be to replace the word may with shall, and then to revise the description of the disciplinary process that would occur to simply state may be subject to disciplinary action. So that provision would read, an officer who has missed mandatory paid training without valid excuse, i.e. duty-related conflict, shall be required to attend the makeup training on flex time and may be subject to disciplinary action. What we're looking at here is from the department standpoint, an officer should not get to train on overtime when a mandatory paid training is missed without a valid excuse. And then the change to the final portion of that section, the reason for that change is that the language it reflects the old disciplinary progression, and the new language would bring it in line with the current process.
just out of curiosity. I find it unlikely, but is there an instance where an officer missed mandatory trainings without a valid excuse and then took overtime to do it?
I'm not aware of a specific incident.
Okay. All right, I'm just checking. Like I said, it sounded highly unlikely to me that an officer would try to use overtime after missing it when he was supposed to be flexed.
Do we have a defined description of what a valid excuse would be, or is that kind of subject to interpretation every time?
We didn't make an attempt to define what a valid excuse
Okay.
is.
Obviously, sickness
A
would be
duty-related
one.
conflict, I'm sick, my wife's having a baby.
But a case by case, we're kind of calling it a case by case basis. Okay.
And from that standpoint, I mean, that language is already there.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like it hasn't been a recent issue anyway, but this, I think, provides clarity so everybody understands what the process would be should that occur.
I think we'd be amenable to giving you maybe some sort of counter on that. Maybe a little bit different,
Sure, appreciate it.
but yeah.
Yep. Okay, shall we move on?
Yep.
All right, in the SharePoint, you should have city proposal 20. It relates to sick leave. Do you have it?
And I am now up and running. Yes.
Okay, so the only change there is to strike in the second sentence some old language referencing 8 hours per month of sick leave. The current contract says members shall accrue 8 hours per month of sick leave, effective the first full pay period following ratification of the contract. Members shall accrue 4.62 hours per period of sick leave, or per pay period of sick leave. So it's just to conform the contract language with the current process.
Percentage. Yeah.
Questions on that?
We don't, and union is agreeable to that proposal.
Okay. Should we note that as yay?
Yes.
I'll bring it clean. You have that. The next proposal we have for you is city proposal number 21, and it relates to shift changes. If you let me know when you see that in the SharePoint.
I see it.
So let me start with kind of the overarching, well, I'll walk through the changes first. The first change is in D sub 4, and the proposal is to strike the language that says including days off prior to each shift change. So that sentence would read, members shall choose their shifts according to seniority, with the most senior members having preference. And then continuing below, the proposal is to add the following sentence, or 2 or 3, I guess. In the interest of ensuring staffing levels and service to the community are maintained at a satisfactory level, each patrol watch will limit the number of the special operations group members at 2. During the druthering process, 2 slots on each patrol watch will be designated for SOG members. Normal seniority rights will be recognized when shifts are chosen. For the purpose of this section, SOG will be defined as members of the Special Operations Unit, Crisis Negotiation Team, and Explosive Ordnance Detail. And then at the end of that paragraph, we're proposing to add the following sentence: the number of SOG members in any other unit may be limited if there is an impact on the level of service to the department. I should say or community. Apologies. The changes to section 5 would shift from the process being various times during the year to an annual shift selection process. And so just a little bit of, well, so let me tell you what that would say in the proposed language. Member shift selections are made annually during the month of November for shift changes that occur during the months of January and July. And what we're looking at is that this is a logistical nightmare for the department, and it makes it really difficult for the training division to keep track of everything. And so the proposal would simplify that process by making it something that occurs annually. And then just to comment a little bit on the proposed changes to subsection 4 with respect to SOG. What we're looking for there is to ensure that we don't deplete other units with people moving into SOG, to make sure that we maintain balance in those groups.
And in addition to limit when there is an SOG training or SOG call out, we don't designate a separate launch control team if you have a high concentration of SOG members on that particular team.
Could I get a little bit of clarification in regards to the membership selections are made annually during the month of November for shift changes that occur during the months of January and July? So we choose for this proposal, we would decide in November, but there's going to be a shift change in January and July. Are you going to make those decisions twice, or is that November you're deciding I'm going to work this shift January through July, and then I'm going to work this shift July through December? Is that what that is?
Correct.
Okay. So November, we have our annual decision for 2 different druthers, and that needs to be made in November. Okay.
Would be to expand the druther process as it currently is constituted will occur just once a year as opposed to 3 times a year. Should change or twice a year, 3 times a year.
And this is an issue that is a problem scheduling training.
There are a number of reasons behind the proposal, but with the amount of training that we do as a department and we schedule, it is a complicated process for them to keep track of everything, and going 4 months at a time. I mean, obviously, sometimes several weeks or even months trying to get everybody through a session. And when that happens to overlap with a shift change, that makes it difficult at best to schedule and coordinate and keep track of. That's one of the primary reasons for proposal.
I guess my point being is that we're asking our largest division to change how they've been doing things, scheduling, their shift selections for the last at least 17 years for me. I would be doing my members a disservice if I didn't get all those reasons and someone who could come in here and speak to it in more detail so that I can understand it and our membership can understand it. The difficulty argument just doesn't work. I mean, everything we do is difficult. Scheduling's always difficult in a police agency. But you're asking my membership to do something that hasn't been done. So I guess I would need all those reasons and someone to speak to it from that aspect.
So ask, what you're clarifying somebody from the training division?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, the simple
I
argument
was just curious
of
what you were.
it's hard is, I'm not gonna be able to sell that to my membership. If to even consider this proposal.
Okay. I don't think we have any other questions on that right now.
Okay,
I guess I do have another question in that I'd be also interested to see the numbers on the impact of SOG, SOU right now and why that's such a big deal in affecting operation. Need somebody to come in and show us the numbers on that as well.
When you say numbers, you're talking about the financial impact?
Financial impact, personnel impact.
Hmm.
Whatever impact feels the need to completely change our druthering process with regards to SOU.
So right now we sit, our teams sit between 14 and 17 officers. I can't think of any shift that has more than maybe 4 of these members on it, but that's just going off my memory. So I guess to show us the impact of if we went this way, what it's actually going to help.
I would encourage you to go back and talk to your membership, especially your sergeants and your officers on those teams, and ask them about the impact, because we've been hearing it from them for years.
As a staffing issue or a financial issue?
From them, primarily the staffing.
Okay.
We can certainly talk about the financial impact.
Okay. Hear anything? Nope.
all right,
No, I think we're good.
moving on.
Yeah.
City proposal 22 is in the SharePoint. And this is another language cleanup. It relates to seniority under section 6 working conditions. And the proposal would strike the language that says length of time on the department for the rank of police officer 3 and below, and replace it with ADA number. This is to align this provision with other parts of the CLA. That is how it's referenced in the involuntary transfer section of the contract. And there's no rank of police officer 3 anymore. So just to clean up from our standpoint.
Okay.
No questions?
Okay.
The proposal 23 should be in the SharePoint. You see it?
I got it.
So the proposal there is to revise section 4B under section 9 of the civil service rules. And the proposal would replace the phrase "for just cause" with the phrase "based on the standard of proof." So that clause would read, well, the whole sentence, I'll just do that. If the chief of police determines the position is no longer needed, if there is a reduction in workforce or staffing shortages, or as part of a documented discipline based on the standard of proof as defined by policy arising from a sustained complaint. And the proposal there is to bring that in line with the policy that is used where there is a sustained complaint. The other thing I'll just point out, since it's here on the same page, it's not a change, but it relates to the prior proposal. If you look at that next bullet point, the last sentence there refers to the member with the least departmental seniority based on ADA number shall be the person transferred. That's what we're trying to align with in proposal 22, among other places in the contract.
I don't have any questions on that. No.
Final proposal we have for you this morning is proposal number 24, which you should now see in the SharePoint. It relates to Appendix D and the department issued safety equipment items. And this is just from our standpoint also an update to bring this in line with well, to make the listing more accurate, I think would be the best way to say that. So we would strike choice of trauma plate and replace that with rifle plate. When it comes to the baton and baton ring, eliminating the reference to PR24 and PRR24. So that would just be a department approved baton and also a baton ring. Adding and holster to OC spray. And then I think we needed an and between radio, handheld radio and holster.
I think we actually added handheld radio because that was previously.
Oh, excuse me. All right, I will.
The radio holster was there.
I will correct that.
And then lastly, eliminating the bottom line, which nobody I have found seems to know what those
Oh, that's a document control number that
refer to.
somehow must have made its way on.
I don't think we can agree to this. I
Previous
think
version.
we need that number.
Crucial.
That
You need to
is-
know that was version 1.
That's a huge number.
I was gonna ask if that's a lot long or something. So
Okay, I corrected that.
Went back to other lists, list of Kelly Shea.
That's what
works for.
it's just been back as far as we can see.
Yeah.
Todd, what did you say that number was? You know what that number is actually?
I recognize it. It's not my number because I wasn't here last time, but it looks to me like a document control number. So when you have a system that tracks hundreds of thousands or millions of documents, it assigns numbers to them.
I think it's been there for 25 years.
And that's how you keep track. But
It's kind of depressing to get rid of it now, right?
I'd like to keep it.
Actually, that's the only.
it's for posterity.
It's actually kind of sad.
I guess
We're open to a counter proposal.
Yeah, I've been trying to get issued that like 4 times. On issue.
Better be turning in for those.
Sure, someone's been trouble for that.
the only question I have on this, speaking about helmets specifically, would the city be amenable to a counter that includes one more item, which is We have motorcycle helmets for motorcycle officers, bike helmets for bike officers. And right now, the city does issue ballistic helmets to patrol officers. Would the city be amenable to TA a counter with just adding that helmet in there?
I think we would certainly be willing to consider a counter offer. I don't know, if we're ready to TA that right now. We'd have to look at that, but certainly.
I mean, it's something we do already, but I would like to have it on this list because it is obviously a piece of equipment that we do already. It would be nice to include that on here.
Yeah, I think, like Chief said, if the union wants to counter and include that, then we can consider it. All right, so that's what we have for you today. I did have one question.
Yeah.
As I was reviewing the SharePoint and getting my bearings before we got back together today. There in the city proposals from June 6th, there the city proposal 3 on comp time, the SharePoint indicates that that proposal was modified by AJ on August 5th. And so I'm not accusing, I'm asking.
I don't remember scrolling.
Well, let's just,
I just want to.
was it on day 5, you said?
Day 5, June
Okay.
6th.
Okay.
I didn't know I could do that.
City proposals. It's loading. You talking city proposal 3?
City
Compensatory
proposal
time?
3 comp time.
Okay.
You see where I'm reading there, August 5, and it says modified by AJ. I just wanted to understand if there was something we should know,
I don't,
or if there was an intent to modify the proposal in some way.
no,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Do you see anything that is?
I haven't checked it yet because I wanted to ask the question first.
Yeah, where do you see that it was modified? Sorry.
Where's
There's a list of files you can see.
Hold on, no, it's for. Was it
So if you look.
June 6th? I'm pulling it up
Bottom,
now.
it says modified by.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm not suggesting anything nefarious, but I wanted to understand if there was something that we should talk about related to that. Or if there was something intentional, some change that you meant to make.
So if you go to, so what I did was I clicked it. You put your mouse on it. And then you click see details. Put your mouse on it. Go back down to content. See, it's marked up. You can see when. It says August. So that can literally be something as small as like creating a space or backspacing something. It shows that the document has been modified.
I might, yeah. I mean, I didn't change, it certainly didn't change anything in it. Like type anything.
Okay.
Knowing his cyber prowess, I would probably wonder if Damon hacked into yours.
No one was asking me. Doesn't say my name. There's no digital print on that baby.
No, as far as we.
Okay, thank
You
you.
guys go look through it. Please feel free if anything
Yeah.
wrong. Or do you feel something's off? Please let us know.
Yeah.
We'll double check, but it just caught me off guard.
Should be pretty easy to pull up the past version and just compare, shouldn't it?
Mhm. All right, that's what we have this morning. Do you have anything you'd want us to consider?
Let me get back to.
I apologize, gentlemen. I am gonna go to this ceremony.
Okay.
Do you want to recess for 10 minutes and then we can discuss if we want to counter now or go over some of these ones I just did?
Yes, we can take
Take 10.
a quick 10. So it's 9:40. Would you guys be, is that
9:50?
9:50?
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. So Union has taken a look at cities' proposals from last time. And we have a few responses. Start with cities counter to Union's proposal I. That was the wellness test. The union is agreeable to that as it was countered by the city. And they're willing to teach.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of, in regards to cities counter to R, which was the FTO. See that dropped in, will be called FTO MOU counter. Union rejects the city's counter to the 8% active incentive having a trainee in the car and the removal of the passive incentive.
Hold up 1 second. Did you put something into the SharePoint?
I did on
I'm
page
not.
6, union proposed.
Not seen it yet. Hold on.
Okay. Is anyone seeing it? Are you seeing it?
I'm seeing it.
I see, but I don't see any changes. Did you just revert back to
So-
the original?
Well, yes, well,
Okay.
we're going to,
Weird. Don't have
are
it.
you still not getting it?
Yeah, but that's okay. If that's all it did, I'll just make note of that.
Yeah, so essentially what
You're
it
holding
is
on.
is the original MOU that was signed between Union and City last May. The city's counter would be a reduction in pay for our current FTOs. We met with the FTOs, spoke with all, I believe, 36 of them. And the proposal by the city was not agreeable to them. And so we've just this is an attempt by the union to rememorialize the MOU we currently have in play. I want to draw attention to this. I wish the chief was here. But he is not. I would like to draw attention to that MOU though, because we are on a timeline with that specific MOU. There are parts of it that are attached to the expiration of this contract. Frankly, the entire MOU is attached to the expiration of the contract. And so even if we TA memorializing this MOU, but we do not come to an agreement before expiration, that MOU goes away and we revert back to 25 FTOs. And so admin would have to fire 11 FTOs until we can come to an agreement there. So we don't want that, to be frank. You don't want that, especially with the hiring push that the city has done a fantastic job with doing and the recruits that we have coming in. We have a mass wave of them coming in the fall that are going to be ready for FTO. Having 25 FTOs will immediately bottleneck that process. And so for us, this MOU is something we would really appreciate you guys looking at, re-looking at. We didn't change it at all. 5% passive to be an FTO, and then at 5% having somebody are. FTOs were pretty clear on the reduction from 10% is something they were not agreeable to.
I think we understand the
Okay.
union's position.
Okay.
I'm
Um,
can't get into that.
are you still out?
Show up. That's
Just
so weird.
a little historic. So
Isn't that weird?
the MOU that we are operating under right now. Okay, sorry.
Isn't that weird? Okay. We'll figure it out
I mean,
later.
as long as the original language. Do you,
Right,
do you recall what number or letter that was?
R.
R, okay. Thank you.
But the one I missed was the wellness test.
That
Where was
is,
that?
I don't
Or what
know.
letter?
give me a letter. That's gonna be I.
All right, thank you.
Is that supposed to be in the folder?
No,
We were just agreeable to it and TAing it. Do you guys want me to resubmit every?
I just.
Okay.
no, that's okay. I
figured
missed
we'd get
the,
kind of bogged down if I reshoved everything.
Yeah.
I just missed the letter
So
associated with.
So the plan for us is things that are going to get submitted are official counters, like
Gotcha.
the recounter. I'm going to place something new.
Yep,
I understand that this one was,
So this is new old, right?
thank you. I was trying to find a way to explain it. It's a great way.
Old.
New,
All right, we can go with that.
if you want to touch on it. Well, I don't know. It's up to you.
Well, I just, some historical, it was, if I'm not correct, and when Chief Weininger comes back, he can correct me, but it was the department that reached out to take that 25 cap off from the original contract language so that the department would have more flexibility. So that we do have this many officers hired, we have the FTOs to support that training of the new officers.
Correct. I do think though, the situation we're in is we anticipate having all the vacancies filled, including perhaps some overages by January. So we don't see this as a problem associated with the length of this contract.
Union, in regards to city proposal 3, or I don't know if it was proposal 3, but the compensatory time. Union rejects that proposal. Um, a counter to for union, this would be proposal O, which was the CID incentive. So in that share folder, you will see it as CID counter AUG August. And what that is a moving of the detective incentive from 2.75 up to 3.75. So lowering that from what we originally were, and then we've combined two different proposals. We just put them both in there because they both applied to CID. So we just bundled the two together. So it was the on-call increase. Detectives that are on call, they're on call for a week. They have to have their phones on 24/7 for that whole week. They get 1 hour of straight pay for that day of being on call. We are asking for that 1 hour to go to 2 hours a day straight pay. So it says 7 at a rate of 7 hours per pay per week. This would up it to 14 hours of pay per week to be on call.
So that on-call time, our detectives answer their phone 7 days at a time, usually. Middle of the night, middle of the morning. On their Saturday, they leave their kids' games. They're on call. They're on that phone. They have to take their gear with them. They have to always do something. So that is like literally the worst thing. And so we want to incentivize that to at least give them 2 hours of straight pay, not overtime, just 2 hours of straight pay to be available, in the middle of the day on a Saturday or Sunday or in the middle of the night like they are. So it's definitely an incentive that needs to happen based on what they do and how often they get interrupted with their families.
I'm having trouble getting this thing to update, but it's not very helpful.
I'm just a
I go
little,
all the way back out and then I went, and then it the first one showed up, but
But this one, I'm trying to follow the proposal account. The original proposal was ours, the counter is yours. Did you go back to the original amounts?
Our original.
I'm sorry, I'm
Oh, no, you're-
challenged by the counter of the counter.
Trust me. This has been a rabbit hole for me as well.
There's-
Our original proposal for CID was 4%.
Okay.
They are currently receiving 2.75.
Okay,
Asked for that to be increased to 4.
okay,
City rejected that.
Yeah.
We are countering with simply a 1% increase to 3.75.
thank you.
We had a separate proposal about on-call pay.
Mhm,
Since those both had to do with CID,
mhm.
we chose to bundle the two together,
Thank you.
where the on-call, they're both just in the same one now.
That's really helpful.
yeah, that is.
My apologies. I will try and explain.
Oh, no, that,
Half the time
I don't know if it was you or me or
it's
whatever.
usually me, so don't worry about it.
We can take a break.
It is. There it
Okay,
is.
Did you get it?
Okay, yeah.
I was gonna say we can hold until.
Nope, thank you.
Okay.
IT skills are phenomenal.
Doesn't
Private
beat me.
department. It just makes sense.
Okay, I'm with you now.
So let me know if you're ready to go. Okay.
Ready to go.
Any questions
Good.
about that CID one, or we?
Nope, got it.
Nope, that one makes sense.
Okay, Union will, we're going to propose recounter city's rejection of Union's proposal A, which was a shift diff incentive. City rejected that. Union is countering. You'll see shift diff counter August. And what this is a lowering from, we're currently sitting at swing shift gets 3% shift differential and night shift gets 5% differential. We originally proposed upping the swings 2% and the nights 2%. We've recountered with just raising those 1%. Shift work is a necessary but difficult part of law enforcement. I think we can all agree that we need law enforcement 24/7, 365. And because of that and the nature of that, we have to have officers that are awake and operating and active at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. We don't think the shift differential, it was, I don't think, I'm not going to take it this way. It was implied last time that the shift differential is a cherry picked benefit from the city. I would disagree with that. I would call that a mischaracterization. Shift diff has been in our contract for over 20 years now. This isn't something that we're trying to grab. This is an industry standard across the nation. We're simply asking to consider this. We believe we would like to incentivize those who have to work during these rough hours, to give them a reason to work those rough hours.
Do you know if we're having a problem filling those hours currently?
I would say on the surface, technically no, because when you druther by seniority. And so those shifts are going to get filled. For us, there were times where night shifts, usually with a lot of young officers, which I know is a stressor for sergeants. And when you become a sergeant, you restart your seniority in the sergeant pool. So you have the sergeants on the night shift with mostly new officers on the night shift. And so that was a big stressor for our newer sergeants. It's just, we understand that comes with the nature of it. But this is a way to try and incentivize to maybe bring more seniority to those other shifts if they choose to go.
Has that worked in the past, to your knowledge?
I don't think we've ever asked to up shift diff.
No, it's been this way for a long time.
Okay,
We're trying to up it based
Yeah.
on all the research on wellness and just how it is affecting officers to work night shift for several years.
so is the goal wellness or is it to get more senior officers?
No, it's just to incentivize them. It's both.
Okay,
Both.
I'd say it's multi-band.
Yeah, it's multi-base. We're just giving you all the reasons. If you've never worked a graveyard shift, just go try it.
Don't,
For a week.
if you don't have to.
And it'll
don't do
just, it's really hard on you.
It's not worth it.
You referenced, I wanted to make sure I was tracking.
Yeah.
You referenced it's industry standard. Were you saying to pay a shift diff is industry standard, or are you suggesting that the percentages that are being proposed are industry standard?
The principle itself
Concept.
of the concept of
Got it.
shift differentials for either working swings or working a nights or like working a weekend. There's several contracts where there's weekend differentials. Those are pretty common.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions on that.
Okay.
You good?
I'm good.
This is a counter to our original proposal G. City denied, union is recountering. Proposal G is parental leave. This is something that we as negotiators have been hearing from our membership quite strongly. This is benefit that we are striving to get. This is the age of trying to hire and trying to attract as we have our influx of retirees leaving. This is one of the items that simply people are looking for. It is true, as kind of what was brought up by the city last time, that we do have other benefits in place, such as leave. The difficulty with that is that people who come into this department basically are forced to build up enough time to prep for that. And so it's putting off members from being able to start families, or if they want to have a family, they're kind of forced to hold off until they've accrued enough time outside of FMLA to take that time. And so it's putting people on a clock that they necessarily shouldn't have to be on. And so our counter is that to lower it from the city's current policy of 10 weeks down to 5 weeks. I added in the language last time I had removed from the city policy. I took out the continuous block of time last time for staffing assistance. You guys kind of mentioned that would be something to put, so I put that back in of a continuous block of time. So if someone were to take that time, they could just take it in 5 weeks.
And so you're saying that's the language from the city policy?
Yeah, 99.9% of that is just pulled from city policy.
Got it. Okay. Any questions on that?
Mhm.
Okay. We're ready to move on.
Okay. Union. The union proposal E, we are recountering from city's counter for E. We should see that in there. And along with that, we had the opportunity to look at the numbers through publicly available information on the city's website and other locations, the city's financial budgets and things like that. And we wanted to go over a little bit of what we found. Essentially, our goal is to demonstrate that we believe that our proposals are reasonable, and we don't think that we are asking for anything that is unreasonable. And we would like to try and demonstrate that as best as we can. We have a little, I don't know what you call this, a little presentation, some slides that we'd like to share that we had uploaded to the computer. Do you mind, AJ, sitting over there and maybe typing to see if we can get those?
She's gonna bring it up for us.
Okay.
Well, so while you're doing that, I just want to make sure I understand. So the proposal is in percentages, 7, 6.5, 5, 4.
So we've lowered it from 23 to 22.5. Which would give us an average annual increase of 5.6% annual. Perfect, thank you. So looking at these, all of this data was pulled from city budgets that were open to the public, things of that nature. So we have just kind of a general comparison between the salary increases in regards to police, fire versus the general employees. I don't have the full extent of the general employees raises, so I just went off their base raises. We don't have a merit system, so I'm not sure exactly.
Did you round up on the general employees? I think 2023 was 5.9,
Okay, I
but
must have.
we can fix we can access the general employees.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, I didn't have the depth of the merit-based system with general employees, so I tried to keep it as surface level as possible with just their base raises, as well as the general funds that are dedicated to the personnel expenses. And the reason we moved back to 2019 is because that was the presentation given to us from the finance guy last time, so we just wanted to stay in the same number range. With that being said, it shows an increase for public safety personnel. General employees don't have the same compensation model, like I said, so I don't want to speak to that. But if we look at the general funds that are dedicated to the personnel expenses every year, they have an increased an average of 6.3% over this period from 2019 to 2024 into fiscal year 2025. So if you want to go to the next slide. So by charting that, putting us at, or
One more, I added a slide by mistake.
so putting us at that 6.3% average expenditure by the city for personnel expenses. Simply what I'm trying to show is that our proposed increase over the next 4 years, we fall under that average. We're not breaking the city's average personnel expense anyway. It is true that we peak over it at times, but most of the time we are riding under that average. As you remember on the slide before, union averages about 5% annually since fiscal year 2019 anyway.
This is void of FTE expansion in either.
This is
Contract
this is based on current FTE levels, and this is just average fringe for our employees.
Sorry, Todd, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask about the expense number you were using. Was that wages only, or did that include fringes?
Fringe.
And the number up above you're using is wage increase averages. Is that right? So when you say you're within that range.
Yeah, so salary increase, for that average salary, and then underneath was just the expenditures for personnel was based on fringe, yes.
Okay, so I just want to make sure. Below what you're comparing against includes fringe, but you're comparing wage averages against the fully loaded number below.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that include the Percy increases associated with the accounts for both public safety and general employee?
It might. I'd have to get back to you on that to see if we actually added those in or not, from both sides, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
And then slide 4 just goes to where we pulled this from. This was all adopted actual budgets online, general fund summaries. If you click to the next slide. So I wanted to break down and like I said, this is going to be projected off of our 7.5, because that was our biggest ask of the 4 years. We've lowered that to 7. So any projections that we see here are actually going to be smaller going forward. So we requested a 4-year contract. We wanted to show what this looks like in proportion to the city's budget to make sure that we weren't asking anything irresponsible or unreasonable. So if you would click to the next slide, and that'll just show a highlight of the 7.5. So if you move to the next one. So this is a breakdown of our general fund within the city budget. We know that public safety covers about 50% of that. Within that, we see a breakdown between fire and police. That's broken down between 23-27% between the both. The police entire budget of 98.8 million. If you move to the next slide, you'll see that the proposed contract is under 50% of that. What we're asking, and that's for the 7.5%, which is now 7. So essentially that's going to come out to about 12% of the entire general fund is for salaries for all contract employees within the police department.
Without a growth in the department.
This is a snapshot of, yeah,
That's fine.
sorry, I can't predict the future.
That's
Sorry. I'm doing I'm working with what I got here. So the total police department budget currently is 27.5 of the proposed general fund. Boise Police contract employees are less than half of the police department's budget, 42%, and we account for about 12% of their proposed general fund expenditure for FY25. If you move to the next slide, just trying to pull out for perspective, because a lot of people, I didn't know this, general funds inside the overall funds by category. At the end of the day, with the entire city budget for FY25, as far as we have it proposed, this contract would be affecting about 4.75% of that. Again, we've just pulled off a 0.5% from that. I don't have updated numbers for you, but I know they're going to be smaller than what is currently projected here. And so again, going down, that'll just, and then the next slide is just again, kind of where we just pulled this from, was just wanting to show that this was open facing public numbers. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, this is to, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the union, to kind of demonstrate, we believe 22.5/4 is not irresponsible nor unreasonable when it comes to funding public safety or law enforcement within the city, especially in comparison to the city's overall budget. The reason we didn't get into the other years is because 7 is the biggest projection that we have. And so if we can look at the biggest change, it's simply going to go down from there in cascading years. That will hold us under the average of 6.3% that the city is spending on personnel anyway. And it'll, from what our originally proposed here, from what our new one is now, it's going to lower our average from 5.75 down to 5.6% annually over the 4-year. If any of that made sense. It again?
Did you have a list?
Oh. Do you guys have any questions on that? I'll do my best to answer them. But
I think
what is currently available to me,
I appreciate that. We may want to come back with some finer detail points on this information, but I
Okay.
think it's fine for now.
okay.
You're in the ballpark
I
for
appreciate
most of it.
I
I understand your overall point. How about that?
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm looking for.
Would it be helpful if we had a copy of what we just went through?
Sure.
We can,
Can you drop it in the thing
yes.
somehow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will get that in there when I can.
It's
I'll find it. I don't know if it's on my lap. We'll get there.
I'll put it.
That is Union's current kind of cadre of proposals. So that's kind of where we stand at this point. We still have to kind of go over and talk about what you guys have proposed today, but that's officially where we're at.
All right, well, it probably then makes sense to break so that you can talk about the proposals that we passed.
Yeah.
We can talk about what you just responded with. And maybe take a look at it overall context of where things stand. Do you anticipate any further new proposals at this point, or do you think you're?
We're not sure yet on that. So we may, I don't want to say no. So
I'm not going to hold you to it. I that's why I asked, do you anticipate
do you guys have
having additional proposals?
Do you guys have any additional more?
I do not anticipate any further proposals from us.
The one it's pretty funny. I don't believe so.
Okay.
And the reason I
just-
say that is because we were gonna propose one today, but you guys proposed it. So you beat us to it. So
You're welcome.
Well, there's a
I mean,
nine.
Is that the one we TA'd?
I felt like we were tracking pretty good on that. I was like, oh, well, that was kind of convenient.
These easy ones. Hey, get the
so
low lying fruit.
I don't,
rather start
I
at
do
the
not,
top.
I don't see.
Okay, I just wanted, and again, I'm not holding you to it, but I
Yep.
wanted to understand what you were planning. Because I think it's time for both sides to start looking at the overall picture and how everything fits together.
Understood. Agreed.
So how long?
We're looking at 10:30. You guys, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 proposals from city. Okay. What are we thinking? What time's lunch?
It's probably noon, so we either
Okay.
gotta come back in an hour, or probably makes sense to come back at
Should just do 1,
12:30 or 1.
31-ish.
Probably
Let's just do 1.
Okay.
1 o'clock.
I do have a quick question. Were you able to verify my suspected nefarious acts?
I told you it was neither suspect nor
Nefarious.
nefarious, but if you want to characterize it that way, that's on you.
No, Vince was already,
I dug in and compared the two versions, and I found a added blank space in that second saved
Okay.
version at the very beginning of the document. I
Okay,
don't know if you found that as well, but that's all I see. So
I didn't have a chance to look at it yet, but I appreciate that.
you made an accusation without looking.
I didn't make an accusation. I asked a question.
I'm teasing.
Let's go.
We'll recess until 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
We set. All right. So we thought it could be beneficial, since, you ran through your economics, and your analysis today. We had some questions, some things that we wanted to call out, and so we thought rather than, we thought the most efficient way to do it would be have Eric join us again, since that's really his thing. And so he's prepared, I won't call it a presentation, but some slides to walk through some of the things that we saw, and I think to highlight some of the questions that we have in terms of the analysis that you provided, just to see if we can get everybody closer to the same page.
Okay.
So we'll let him kick that off if he's ready to go.
Ready to go. And I just hide this like what do I do here?
I think you just gotta ignore it.
There you go, push it down there. Okay. So, just some high-level thoughts. There was a table that was included on the deck that outlined salary growth figures from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2024. Just two corrections there. The base fire increase that was represented on that table showed 6.5%. However, the true increase was 3.5%. I suspect that was just a typo. That brings the 6-year average for fire to 5.04% versus the 5.54% that was represented. And then the second piece, as I think Courtney indicated in this morning's session, the general employee increase for fiscal year 23 was 5.9, not 6%. Very marginally changes the 6-year average.
Sorry to stop for just 1 second.
Oh.
People online couldn't see, so
Okay.
make sure that we're sharing the slides. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Do I need to start over or?
I think it's pretty.
I'm tracking.
Okay.
Yeah, we're tracking. So
All right, great. So marginal decrease on the 6-year average for general employees from 3.08% to 3.07. Sorry, I I can't go back. I can only go forward.
If you right click, you should be able to. You can, it's in the bottom,
Oh, in the bottom left.
Yeah.
Zoom put it in a different spot.
Okay. All right, thanks. On that same slide presented this morning, where it showed the percent salary increases by employee kind of category, there was also a table at the bottom that said general funds dedicated to personnel expenses. There are some aspects of that table that are in need of correction. I have the amended numbers on the right-hand side of this slide, and I'll go into what changed. But basically, the average annual increase is 6% versus the 6.32% that was represented.
Okay.
If we use, well, let me just say this, and then I'll what changed. Using the percent of general fund average annual increase to inform salary increases presents a handful of issues. Using that 6%, you're also capturing all new positions that have been added to address service level issues, growth related issues, anything under the sun, really. So from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2024, the general fund authorized headcount went up from 1,363 to nearly 1,531. That represents an increase of 12.3%. Some of the growth in overall personnel is attributable to increased revenue that is not available for general use. So things like planning and development services, as more development fee revenue comes in. Per state code, you can't run a profit in any service line. We've used that increased revenue and increased activity levels to augment the business. Similar things you'll see in parks and recreation services, right? So as there's more play camps, or there are more participation at the Idaho Ice World or the golf courses, we use that revenue to increase staff. So, I guess to drive the point home, some of those percent increases we're seeing are attributable to non general purpose revenues. And then the third kind of takeaway from this slide as to why I'm not sure that using percent of general fund budget allocated to personnel is the best way to go here, is that the growth figures include numerous non-salary items, including but not limited to PERSI. And our PERSI costs have been rapidly increased. I think we talked about this back in June, due to increased salary, increased headcount, and increased contribution rates. Those figures also capture increasing health costs. The reason that it went from 6.32 to 6.0%, and the numbers that I shifted was really attributable to the fact that the numbers that were presented this morning used inconsistent methodologies across the fiscal years. In some instances, adopted budget figures were used, in other instances, actual figures were used. And really, you're going to get the best result if you use an adopted to adopted methodology that will kind of negate factors such as differing vacancy levels and overtime levels. There was a slide that was presented this morning that included costs outside of the general fund. It included enterprise funds and other funds. So, as I looked at that, I think it's important to note that when we're determining affordability of general fund costs, such as police items, it's important that we only use general fund revenues.
Are you referring to the slide where we were simply showing the percentage of impact in regards to the entire city budget?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we didn't use any costs outside of general funds. we would just focus, I just wanted to make sure that we.
Okay, yeah, because I did have a question about that.
Any,
So-
any math that was performed was just inside the general fund. We were just using the entire city budget as just a perspective to get the 10,000 foot view at the end.
Understood. Thank you. Okay. So that I think answers this question. I was kind of unclear as to what we were trying to communicate with the 4.75%, but I think that was what you just commented on. We talked about this back in June, but being the budget guy, I bring it to most every conversation. Cost growth considerations that we have. We're seeing costs rise for many basic services well in excess of the 3% base growth that's allowed for property taxes. And I'm just going to bring in a few examples. Software costs in fiscal years 22 and 23 were approximately 70% higher than they were on average between 2017 and 2019. Fuel, using the same comparison, was up by 60%. Insurance was up by 50%. If we look at retirement costs, we're seeing some pretty significant increase. This is forward looking. I know that much of the conversation this morning was looking back, but for fiscal year 2025, there's going to be a 10.5% year-over-year rate increase for public safety, 7% for general employees. Cumulatively, that's about $1.5 million. And that's equivalent to nearly 1% property tax increase. I'll note, and we had a discussion about this also in June, that future rate increases are expected to consume an increasing percentage of the overall general fund budget, placing limitations on staff growth. We've also seen some pretty significant cost escalation in the capital fund. If we were to look at the difference between contributions and what they would have been required to have been to keep up with costs, we see a gap of about 25% over the last 5 years. And then just a kind of a closing comment here. And this applies across the board, right? But there are challenges with expenditure growth exceeding 3%. The reason I've selected 3% is that is our max base growth for property tax. And property tax represents over 60% of our overall general fund revenues. So whenever we have growth exceeding 3% in any category, it challenges our ability to scale or maintain service levels. So I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments.
Can you say that last line again? Any growth that is over 3% challenges your property tax revenue because that's capped at 3%?
Sorry, it challenges our ability to scale and maintain service levels, right? Because our principal revenue stream grows at 3%. So, if we generally look at that as being available for all of our existing services, right?
Okay.
And if you look at all the various components that needs to support its salaries, but it's also the things like PERSI or software or fuel. So that bucket is available for that. There are other revenue streams, much smaller in nature.
Okay.
Some could grow, a little bit more than 3%. The majority of them grow less than 3%. The overall point here being that it's difficult in any line of business to grow in excess of 3%. It usually requires reductions elsewhere or holding the line and not being able to respond to growth.
That 3%, for example, the 3%, let's say the city, I don't have them memorized, but the property tax that the city is bringing in, let's say fiscal year 22, 23, and 24, if those 3 years were all 3%, for example, I don't know what they were, this is just hypothetical. Isn't that real value though going to be different based on the actual monies coming into the city? Like you could pull 3% one year but that 3% is going to have a different number attached to it because the growth is different in that fiscal year change, correct?
That's true.
Okay, I'm just trying to
So,
understand
so
between real, real value and then the percentage is placed on top of them.
yeah,
If that makes sense.
I think I understand where you're going with that. So there's a compounding effect that occurs. Right? So 3% in one year, you grow it. And then the next year, that 3%, the value of the 3% is different than
Yeah.
the year prior.
Okay.
Because you're picking up, your base has increased by 3% in that prior year. So there's a compounding effect. And the other piece that is available, is property tax associated with new growth, right? So that's above and beyond the 3%. And the council dedicates that growth towards growth in staffing or really towards staffing growth, because the property tax new construction is new payers, coming into the system associated with new buildings effectively. So we need to respond to new growth out in the community. So
I think that makes sense.
so to the point that you don't allocate that new growth towards new officers or new parks maintenance, whatever it is, you will see service level degradations. And that's the trade-off that you make when you increase things above 3%.
What percent of that is the general fund?
For that first year, 2025.
I'm sorry, I'm not
Like if our contract, what's the total cost for us for 2025? Like
total cost of police services.
with what we asked for the first year for our last proposal, what would the total cost be for the city for the 2025?
Are you asking about the 7.5%
Yeah, the first
wage increase?
Yeah, the wage
just trying to
increase, and then
understand
what percent that is of the general budget.
I don't think we have what the percentage is of the general budget.
Okay, because we had, I believe, an adopted for FY25. I don't know if that's part of the discrepancy there. And so our contract was coming in at roughly 12, if I'm not mistaken. I just don't know with adjusted, adopted, or actuals if that number has changed for the percentage allocated to the general fund.
I don't have the number readily available.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to wrap.
But I think the answer to your question, and Eric can correct me if this is wrong, but the adopted number, is that what because you were saying that was a better number to use? If we use the adopted number for the budget and apply 7.5% to it, that's what the cost would be?
Not quite, because the budget for police department includes elements that are not covered by the contract.
Sure. And sorry, I guess I should have been more specific. I was meaning the wage. Is there a wage component to it
Yes.
within that total budget?
Yep, if we were to isolate that number.
Yeah.
And then increase that by 7.5%, you're gonna get a somewhat accurate result. There are.
And a result based upon the snapshot from right now that doesn't include growth, for example, new positions.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm tracking. I'm sure we're gonna have questions probably later after I look at this. Did our slides ever get dropped in? No?
We
Okay.
never saw them, no.
We took pictures of them from the YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. That works.
We had to improvise.
I
Could have gave you our thumb drive.
So we
Yeah,
can't give them
probably.
to you either,
Okay.
because that's how we.
We are happy to take snapshot. We will also use our phone cameras. And we'll get what we
Cheapest copy.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. Is that all? I think that's what we have for now. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Your-
Thank you, Eric.
Your impromptness is very commendable all the time.
Thank you.
And then out of nowhere with the yeah, slides and stuff. Very impressive.
Before I forget and before we move on, I went ahead and printed, I think we have 2 TAs that we haven't signed yet. Printed those, I've signed, so I'll pass that to you and you can take a look at those on the next
Okay.
break to make sure they are as
Appreciate
you
it.
understood them to be.
Hmm?
Want to snap pictures?
Please continue.
Have to stop so I can make the jokes.
I know. Here we are.
So hopefully that was helpful. Again, I would just want to make sure we're all operating on the same, sort of under some of the same understanding. From our standpoint, I think at this point, we have quite a few open issues still. And I guess on our side, the hope is that we can start to make some progress and start to move things forward toward getting a final agreement together. As we've discussed on a couple of occasions, the timing is important. I think at least twice we've talked about, we had identified, we'd worked backward based upon the end of this contract, September 30. Worked backwards, we had identified July 26th as the time frame in which we needed to have an agreement at the table by, so that we could obtain proper approvals, both your ratification on your side, council approval on our side, to give us time then to implement those within the city's payroll system so that those can go into effect by the 1st. We're obviously now outside of that window, and the longer that we take, the longer it's going to take to implement those changes. And we talked about the issue of retro, and the city is not willing to do that given the difficulties that were associated with that last time. And so time has become really of the essence, and we do want to find a path forward as quickly as we can. So what we're prepared to do at this point would be to propose a package that takes from some of the proposals that are out there and puts them all together, because I do think it could be helpful to see everything in one place, because now, we've got proposals from our first set of meetings in May that we really haven't gone back on, had conversations about. So we're prepared to make a package proposal, and what I'll do, and I think for clarity, what I'll do is I'll walk through, I prepared a document that summarizes the package.
Okay.
But also I went back and pulled each of the underlying proposals because they're all in different places. And so my intention would be then to drop those into, I probably will create a separate folder within the city proposal folder so they all sit together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way you can take a look at those and see them all in one place. So let me here.
Make it hotter.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do that for you.
Please. So do not call. She can call me about your meeting. Thank you. That was longer. I'm pretty good at those thermostats.
Here's the one thing I need to figure out. Would I be able to drag that?
Sure, you come.
I think I can do it. I just opened a separate window. Let's see if this works. Oops. Have to get assistance on that. Not sure how to move it from one of our.
Folders.
Yes.
Okay, we need the three dots.
Mhm.
Mm,
Does that move it or copy it? Okay,
moves it.
all right.
Alexa, my document, please.
Right away.
Try again.
Yeah, cancel it.
Copy
it,
to,
yeah,
there we go.
if you want to copy. Then it should ask you the path.
Oh, there we go. Oops, wrong one.
Copy here when you get there.
Wow, that's a great way to build the anticipation.
That was a lot of clicks to get there. Okay,
Sounded complicated.
yeah, I'm not looking forward to transferring the rest over. All right, so it should be there now. Let me confirm it's a document
City proposal.
called City Package Proposal. 8/14/2024.
There it is.
See it? All right, so let me walk you through it and then
You don't have it?
Go to day 6.
Was, came back out.
Click it. There you go.
There it is. Thanks.
Proud of you.
got it. All right, so this is a package proposal and a rejection of one is a rejection of all. So the package as proposed would include all current TAs. It would include city proposal on base pay, which we have modified our proposal over the life of the contract. Our original proposal was 2,211 in percentages. And the proposal as of today that'll move into the folder on a break will be 2.5211. So that one has been changed. There's the other two that you'll see, and let me talk through those that have changes made to them are the city counter to union proposal G. This is item number 5 on parental leave and item 6 on comp time. So what we did was we connected those two concepts, and what we are proposing is that we would allow the membership to access the city's parental leave policy as stated in the city policy. And in a corresponding way, we would reduce the comp time accrual from 480 hours down to 80 hours. And the thought process there is under the parental leave policy, there are 10 weeks available. And the membership would get the benefit of 10 weeks. That's 400 hours. So that is the proposal, is to offer the city's parental leave policy and correspondingly adjust the comp time maximum accrual.
Notification window. No change.
Notification
Right now-
for leave
Yeah, right now it's
as
2 hours
as stated in the city policy. I'm sorry, for parental leave.
for comp time.
No,
Because you're dropping it from 480 to 80. Are you also touching the notification window, or are we leaving that at 72 hours?
let me double check before I answer that. I want to make sure I'm speaking to it accurately. It's sharing. Yeah, let me double check it.
Your previous proposal that was rejected was a week of notification.
We did not make a change to that.
So we are still holding that as a week.
Yes.
Okay.
You're not seeing them. So you're just seeing this, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm typing the notes. He's gonna place the underlying
That's fine.
proposals in later. I'm just taking notes now.
I mean, unless you want to sit here while I go through all of those clicks.
We're good. We're good.
Good choice.
We'll take high level notes.
But then so those are those, I wanted to call those out because those are the three that we made changes to. The others are as previously proposed or previously countered. And so I included those dates in the package just so that you can go back and see in the SharePoint where those are. But like I said, I will drag them over so you can look at the underlying proposals in context. Check one other thing here very quickly. Hold on.
Sorry, I'm trying to take notes. You said adjusted base for our proposal E is 2.5, 2, 1, and 1.
Correct. Yep. There's one here I want to check to make sure I brought it over correctly. Just bear with me.
We've just worked on.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to.
Was it the same before we wrapped?
Yeah.
One correction that I need to make. It's gonna mess up the numbering, but let me correct it. Because we should not have included the counter current item number 3.
City counter to FTO.
Correct. Because that was our proposal to move from 5 and 5 for the FTOs to 8, and that was rejected.
Yes.
And so I'm going to just, since this is a live document, I'm just going to delete it.
The line number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in regards to the package, would we still be well, line 13, so that one is withdrawn, so we would be in a holding pattern on that MOU technically still.
So right. So what that means, it's not withdrawn, but it's not part of our package. So if the union were to accept this package, it would not be in,
everything else goes away.
it would not be included.
Okay.
I'm just gonna note deleted. So that's off. So what that means is the MOU continues to exist as it is and
Until September.
survives on its own terms.
Okay. Vacation leave cleanup. Okay. Working out of classification cleanup. Grievances, was that as proposed by the city?
That was as proposed by the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the second counter, the amendment? Because correct me if I'm wrong, I believe originally you had the removal of arbitration. We rejected that, and then you removed hearing officer. Is that the hearing officer version or the arbitration version?
That is the hearing officer version.
Okay. Promotional process. 18 through 24
Those are the items we proposed today.
today. Okay.
So I didn't think it was necessary to line them all out since you'd just seen them.
Do you have any questions? Okay. Do you have any questions?
I'm always prepared to move costs on this stuff.
Do you guys have anything else?
No, not at this time.
Um, let's send you our counters to proposals 18 through 24, and then if you don't mind, we'll take a minute to caucus about this package.
Okay.
If you're
Yeah,
ready
that
for
sounds that sounds fine.
I think you're not going to review the counters that are coming now as a rejection of the proposal.
I mean, how would you like us to view it? I guess I know you've done the work and prepared it. So if you don't want it to act as a
There was just a few,
rejection, we're happy to take a look at it sort of with that understanding.
that's fine. We had a few we were going to TA, but there will be ones that are rejected, which essentially would kill the package. So
Sure. Okay, so I'm happy to agree that we'll take a look at the responses. We
we could just cut to the chase. I mean, there's
treat this
no way we
separately.
can agree to this. There's absolutely no way we can agree to this. And I'm surprised this was even proposed, frankly. I understand that we're on a time crunch. I get that. I agree. We would essentially be agreed to everything that we've previously rejected to the city at this point. You're handing us a package with all of the city's proposals and asking us to just take that, simply just to be done in time.
Well, I don't think that's a fair characterization. I mean, I understand that there are some things in there that the union has rejected, some things that the union is not interested in. But we are looking for a way, and this was what we thought would be one constructive way to try to help us move things forward. So
I understand, but on its surface, can you tell me one thing that we've proposed in this that we would be getting in this package that actually is our original proposal?
well, no,
Do we have an actual proposal from the union side that you trying to create a package? I understand for understanding because we're trying to speed up the process, but have you actually included anything from our side in the package? That's what I'm asking.
well, we've actually offered something that's more generous on parental leave than the union has proposed.
It's not what I asked.
We've agreed to, I mean, it includes all current TAs, so there are things that we pass back and forth. So, I mean, I don't know what you're expecting. It includes counters that we have to union proposals. I mean, it's movement. So you can characterize it however you want.
And that's fine. And we can call it
intended to help the parties move toward an eventual agreement.
I would actually say this is movement backwards because we're again bringing up things that we've rejected multiple times already, and we've made our position so clear. This is not moving forward. You're just trying to repackage it and name it something. So in the name of time, I don't think this is speeding up. And if anything, this is wasting time. I don't think you guys honestly would assume that we would agree to this. Especially with a line at the top that says rejection of one item is a rejection of all.
Well, to be fair, I think that's why they presented it to us. I mean, Todd, you brought up at the beginning of the session, talking about July. We looked for dates shortly after our last meeting, which was the 5th and 6th of June. But the union was more than willing to meet all of July. Here we are 2 weeks into August. I think we were more than willing to get this done in a timely manner. Like my partner said, I don't think this really helps anything. I think this is not progress.
Well, we talked about dates at our last meeting in June. We provided dates promptly on which everyone on our side was available. And you're working with a lot of calendars of people who have busy schedules, travel schedules, and we offered you the first available dates that were out there.
I understand.
So to
Um,
suggest that there was something going on there, which was your suggestion, is frankly not helpful and I think disingenuous.
The reason it was suggested is because ground rules had a mediation clause placed at July 26th. That one party would send us to mediation if we didn't have a contract. So it is assumed by the union that if that would have been agreed to, there would have been a day found in July. Otherwise, we're going to mediation. So you have to see it from our side as well, that if that was originally the intent of having a mediation clause placed at the end of July, and then we just gloss over July, would there have been a day found where we could have met before going to mediation? So for us, if that's not the case, the implication then is that the city wants to go to mediation. That's how else are we supposed to take that? I don't think that's the way, and I don't want to go to mediation. I don't want this to go any further than it needs to go. But you have to see from our perspective, that has been the picture that has been painted by the city at this point.
Well,
We want to go fast, we want to go fast. And then we're put on ice for 35 days. And then we're told, well, we need to go fast.
no, I mean, we don't have to. I'm just trying to be transparent about the timing.
I agree.
And we were having the
Both sides made it clear we wanted to go fast.
ground rules conversation in what month was that?
March, April.
Right. So nobody knew the July calendar at that point. That was an item that we had proposed in order to try to keep us on a schedule. And that's just what we're trying to do now. So we've been consistent and transparent from the very beginning. And that's all I want to make sure that people understand.
Sure. I understand. But as this package, I mean, even if
Then come back with something.
I agree, and we will. But what I'm saying right now is even if we were to say yes to this at the table, you know full well there is no way our membership will vote for this. And you know that full, especially 2.5 to 1 and taking 400 hours of comp time. We would be fired from our elected positions if we tried to bring this back to the body. So I can't in good faith say yes to this.
I understand. Okay.
So with that, would you like to hear our counters to 18 through 24? Or should we caucus and union comes up with a counter to this package? What would you prefer to see?
I don't think it matters from our standpoint.
Okay.
Whatever you think, from your perspective is most beneficial to help move things along. Like I said, I'm happy to take a look at the counters.
Sure.
If you want to
Well, I
those across, or if you want to have a conversation before you make a decision, that's fine too.
okay. Well, we'll do 18 through 24, but I like the idea of a package. I'll say that right now. I like the idea of a package, and I think that is a step forward in progress. If that's probably how this is going to get volleyed back and forth is through a package. I can agree with that. So the principle on its surface, I can agree with. Let's just, let's take, you want to take 20? Let's just take 20. We'll take 20, go to 2 o'clock, if you guys don't mind.
Okay. That sounds fine.
How about 2:05?
Or 205.
205.
Or 205. Well,
We good?
Not quite. All right, we're ready.
So I guess I'll start, and some of this may be speaking from the perception of someone who wasn't here for the morning session. But my understanding was that at the morning session, y'all presented, I think, 6 proposals that there was then a 2-hour lunch for the union to consider those 6 proposals. And when I arrived for the afternoon session, I thought we were going to discuss those 6. And so the impression that I got, Todd, from your comments and the actual proposal that the city made this afternoon was that there is no more discussion on those 6 proposals from this morning. And it's sort of a take it or leave it package that's on the table right now. Is that a correct understanding?
No, and I think I was clearer around it than that. Like I said, we're happy to hear the counters to it. We had the same amount of time that you all did, and we were trying to do work and figure out a way to move the process forward, which was what I conveyed across the table and wanted everybody to understand. That's how we were looking at this. And so when the question came about potentially responding to those, even though I had provided you with a package, that's why I said I'm happy to hear it. We won't treat it as a rejection. And so that remains. So we can have that conversation now. We're happy to hear it. But I would like to be clear that the package came from a place of, we're now in meeting number 6. And it seems to me that we're not getting anywhere. And so I would like to see us start to make some progress.
Well, I think both sides would like to see the progress. I think from the comments you heard before the break, the concern is that with the city not including any of the union's proposals as accepted within its bigger proposal, it feels like there's no progress on anything other than the things that the city wants. And so that's, I think, the concern from this side of the table is if the goal here is to actually reach a deal on terms that are acceptable to both sides, there has to be some give and take. And the feeling is that there's not been any give from the city yet, but plenty of take.
Well, so I don't want to go sort of tit for tat on this, but I think if you are looking at the items that we've TA'd, the city hasn't gotten anything either. We've gotten cleanup changes, technical changes, we fixed typos. Look through, I know you don't have this, but look through the list of the TAs. We have gotten nowhere. And you haven't agreed to anything that we've asked for either. So it doesn't seem to me that there's any real disparity in the behavior at this table, if that's what you're suggesting.
Well, but the distinction I would make, though, is that it felt in this afternoon session that the city didn't, because the union came in with a couple TAs from the last 6 proposals that were made this morning. And the impression from the comments this afternoon was that didn't matter. That if you reject one, you reject the whole.
Well, that's so how a package proposal typically works is they are tied together. And it's a way to have a conversation around a total group of proposals that either side would be willing to agree to. And so it's a way to kick off a conversation that kind of changes the way we're doing this, because sliding proposals hasn't resulted in any meaningful progress.
And I appreciate the explanation of how a global proposal works, but I think the confusion was that the city didn't seem to want responses to its last 6 that were made this morning. And so what I hear you saying is that the city would like to continue negotiating and would like to hear the responses from the 6 that it proposed this morning so that we can continue the discussions. Is that fair? I don't want to
fair.
put words
Yes.
in your
No,
mouth.
absolutely. That's
Okay.
fair. Yep.
Sweet deal. So in day 6, I'll be dropping in, it's going to be called counter proposal 19. This is in regards to mandatory paid training, if somebody were to miss training. The union is agreeable to changing the word may to shall. Our concern, though, was just that the phrase valid excuse is very, there's a lot of latitude that comes with that phrase. And so we tried to define it since we told there was not going to be a definition for it. We tried to add things in there that would kind of shore up what that would look like. We also did not remove the language for the first occurrence of a verbal reprimand, second occurrence of mandatory use of flex time. We added the words and may be subject to disciplinary action, including, so that the admin are not bound by that following language. Word may there still gives them the ability and that guidance to make that decision, but they're not held to that standard. If that kind of makes sense.
In the parenthetical, the additional language in that proposal, is the intent for that list of enumerated items to be exclusive or just illustration for the types of things that would qualify as a valid excuse?
Meant to be as an illustration, and I think we, with the or similar circumstances, since we were told it would be kind of case by case, we figured kind of giving examples of what that would look like could be helpful for both sides, so that the member as well as those who are in charge of the training would know what is up for debate. Again, for a situation that I think rarely happens.
Do you did you talk about any other situations that you think would qualify as a similar circumstance, or is that just to?
We didn't come up with any others.
Okay.
This time.
The main issue there is it's not defined, and we kind of find ourselves in a unique position that normally the city is more than one to define, to let everything know. We're having to define ourselves as to what the city's trying to say.
Yeah.
We understand there's reasonings, just to say it's, various or whatever, that's, we'd like to give our membership some kind of direction, as with, I would think that the city would want us to have some kind of direction as to what's going to qualify for that. So we find ourselves adding in language that maybe y'all want something different, or you can think of more things, but these are things, and again, has been already put out here, this has not been a problem. This hasn't been an issue. So no one really knows even what they could or couldn't put in there, but the fact that we don't have anything in there, to define what that is, we find ourselves trying to define that. And I would like to go back to earlier, though, of defining things, moving on. One of the last things that were said, and this was what we couldn't really get this far, is we said about the 6, we wanted to give these 6 and give them to you, and we already rejected that. And then the answer was it wouldn't matter. So words mean things. So on our side, when you go, it's not going to matter. The question was, what was not going to matter? The fact that we're going to do this to give you these 6, and whether you give us this or not, it's not going to matter if you reject the package, or it's not going to matter whether we take a deal or not, and then we take a break and then talk. That was our confusion in the record. So again, we all know words mean something. That's what we're trying to even do here, so everybody can follow the rules, follow the wording. But when you sit across from us and go, it's not going to make a difference, or it's not going to matter. We took that as, no matter what we do at this point, is not going to matter. That's why you got the question from Guy as to, are we, do
do you want to hear them and move forward? We've all been doing this for a long time. I've probably been doing it longer than I really want to confess to, but this is very unusual. And I do it from East Coast, West Coast, mid, and everywhere else in between. And that language that was used earlier at the break means something totally different on our side of the table. So I'm glad we've clarified that and we want to move forward. But that's where we find ourselves in this. We're trying to get language put in there so that everybody has a guideline, which is what we all want to follow anyway. That's what we all follow. We follow rules, regulations, we follow laws, we follow these things. But if you have no definition, you leave it very vague. So that's what we're looking at. Have we thought of everything? No, sir. We haven't thought of everything. I don't think we can. Is there some things that may come up that you alluded to earlier about, case by case? Yeah, that's probably gonna be there. But this gives us some idea to tell our guys, if you do any of it, that's definitely what's gonna happen.
So, well, then let me ask a couple of questions about the language that's been added. Does anybody reasonably believe that previously authorized time off is not a valid excuse? I mean, it doesn't seem like that to me. So that seems
Right, all we did is unstruck what you had. This was language everybody was living. If I understand correctly, because
No.
Which one are we talking about?
that's all new language.
Oh.
Right.
It was in here,
Almost.
said duty related conflict in parentheses,
Right.
and then we added all of all.
Okay. Yeah,
So point being, I don't think that the language necessarily clarifies that clause doesn't clarify anything that there's potentially any confusion about. Family obligation. What would qualify there as not being that would qualify as being a valid excuse? And is there anything that would not under the term family obligation?
That's the problem. We're walking,
Well, I mean, look, what I just heard was we're looking for clarity. And so I'm already anticipating that there are questions around the language. And so I want to make sure if we're going to do this, that we talk about this in a sufficient level of detail that we can define it in a way that we're all on the same page. Because family obligation can mean a lot of different things. That's all I'm saying.
Right, as a for instance, is a family obligation, my wife's having a baby, or is it my son's got a track meet that got scheduled last night, so I'm gonna go to it and miss training?
and how would you view that between the two scenarios?
yes.
I would say certainly the first one, that's beyond your control and it's a pretty important event, absolutely. The second one, I would think, is not a valid excuse, a family obligation. So I agree with you. If we want to make things clear and give some guidance and direction, we can certainly do that. I think it all boils down to, again, the discretion of the supervisor on up to the chief on what is a valid excuse or not. The third party does not spell that.
So then part of your counter proposal would be take out family obligation. Okay.
Right, but I'm asking questions related to the proposal and what the intent was behind it.
That's the intent.
So that we can-
The intent was to give some type of definition.
Right. And I understand.
And so that's the intent.
Right.
It goes no farther. There's no, if you want to talk about definitions, like what you're trying to do, okay, we can look at that. And yes, we've talked about pregnancies, we've talked about graduations, and this can also go back to even what you're talking about with changing schedules or the times of the scheduling stuff. If my son's graduation is this day and it was when I made my pick, I was off. I don't know, something happened, it got postponed, now it's 2 weeks later. That's really a family obligation to go to my child's graduation. Would that be valid or would that not be? Well, it wasn't a problem when I did it earlier, but it's a problem now because I shift bid and they changed the dates on it. So, yeah, I see the point, but the question then comes, where is your right, meaning management, to say yea or nay. And I think that's described in another article.
Well, I don't think I have any questions further about the language or the proposal there.
Okay.
I mean, one of the other things too that we did discuss was if we don't have the language, certain definitions in the policies, procedures, or whatever, that we move and make definitions to put them in the definitions of the contract. Because you have definitions of the contract now. It's at the beginning of the contract of words. If we want to hash out a definition, put that in the definition of the beginning of the contract, we all know what the definition is. And we don't have to worry about going from there as long as it's within the four corners of the document of the contract.
So in terms of the second proposed change there and retaining that first occurrence, second occurrence, third occurrence, is that, did I understand correctly, that's included to be an example of what could follow?
Yeah, and that's why we added the language and may be subjects, including, so just a way for that to stay in there and yet offer guidance. Because we understand that policy does change and it's currently being overhauled again. And so we know that these things get thrown into the air a lot. So by putting the word may in there, we give the latitude for management as well as the guidance on what we typically would do based on history and precedence for how rarely this does occur.
Okay, understood.
Any other questions on that one?
No.
Okay. City proposal 20, union is agreeable to that and is willing to TA that.
Okay, thank you.
Let's just go over that for those
Oh,
listening.
sorry.
City proposal 20.
Sorry.
Was a cleanup of sick leave from the previous contract where it had 8 hours. It was just striking out the 8 hours per month language from the old contract.
It was, we were told that it's the new timekeeping system. It operates differently, and so this is smoother to get it to operate. So it's fine. Proposal 21, the SOG being placed into shifts as well as an annual druther for reduced druthers. Union is going to reject that one. Based on feedback we were getting in the caucus room, too many moving parts, and just something you're gonna say.
Could I ask a clarifying question?
Pull up the proposal when you do that. So,
Would there be any number? We proposed 2 slots on each patrol watch. Would there be any number that is acceptable to the union, or is it a rejection outright of the notion that we could limit the number of SOG spots per team?
I have clarifying questions. I don't know.
Okay.
But for me with the SOG thing, because I've heard something akin to this in the past with the CSIs. Did they kind of do the same thing? I wasn't here for that. And so
CSIs were placed one on.
they were kind of placed one on a shift. If we were to accept this and have 2 slots for each shift, do those SOG members, do they druther by ADA for which shift they want to go to, or is it by time and unit? which how most specialties operate.
My understanding would be that they would rather buy ADA onto the shift they want. So not putting SOG control, yeah, by ADA, but there's only two available to them on each shift because of their status of being SOG. I haven't really thought that through completely, but that's my gut instinct.
Okay. Is that going to lower minimums on each shift, or is it we have our typical minimums at like 16, 17, and then we have the two ancillaries added, or are those going to cut into the reason I ask, right, is if we're going by ADA and you have somebody, for example, on the bubble for grumpy days, and that number's typically 16 and they're druthering 15 or 16. Now these SOG slots come in and they take 16 and 15 away. So now there's only 14 slots for people outside of SOG to druther. Does that make sense? So you have people who with their ADA could get into this shift, but these SOG slots are now blocking those out. Is that how that would work?
Somebody that made it onto SOG and they have a 1000 ADA is now able to bid grumpy day shift weekends off because they're bidding into one of those SOG slots.
Theoretically, is that how that would, well, and would it take away from the overall minimums of that shift? Whereas a person with way higher seniority would be able to pull that 15 and 16 on the bubble. Are they now being blocked out because of the addition? Or is the SOG going under it as an ancillary duty? Kind of like canines.
That is a good question.
Yeah, so these were questions that we were getting from the membership. They were like, hey, we don't really understand how this would look, what this would look like. And so I'm just trying to, I want to get a clearer picture of it before we make any decisions on it.
I think we would want to clarify that before we
Okay.
agreement about it. But again, my thinking would be we're limiting the number of SOU personnel who go to a shift. We're not necessarily talking about putting slots into and reducing minimums on that shift. Makes sense. But that is a good question.
Okay. Okay, so as it stands, we'll reject that proposal, awaiting further clarification for proposal 21.
And while we're thinking about that,
Yeah,
obviously on both sides, I would, and it may depend on what we decide, right? But would there be a number either way that would be acceptable to the union? So would there be a number of like 3?
Yeah, we'd have to see. We'd
Yeah.
have to see what it looks like, chief, before we can determine.
and I think the biggest thing that's going to define that is if it's going to take those slots or if it's going to be added ancillary underneath the watch. So it's like I think that's going to really, because by
It's a big uproar. I mean, that's a whole change to the division to include CID, COD, and patrol. So it literally is a huge uprising that would need to be shown and explained what it would look like.
And I would ask you to consider there's basically 2 options, right? One, it's an added ancillary duty, and one it's not, it's in there. So if you could think about that while we.
You're saying get feedback for both?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're good. Okay. Regards to proposal 22, union is agreeable to that proposal and is willing to TA.
Can you just,
I'll pull it back up, but it's
just a little,
language regarding seniority, changing that classification, re-enumerating that it's going to be by ADA than by time and department, which is literally the same definition.
thank you.
Back us up one as well for a clarifying question.
To which one?
Proposal 21
21.
shift changes.
Okay.
So there was the one issue being that of G and assigned to shifts and so forth. The second one had to do with shift change selections. Was there a discussion on that part of it acceptable or rejected on its own?
I mean, it was rejected. Or if you're wanting to get into whys, we can get into that if you'd like. But it was made pretty clear with the few calls we got that that was something that the membership were not interested in at this time. So
Have any counter proposal in regards to trying to help fix that problem?
No, matter of fact, we asked you for data before you left, if you recall. And we're not gonna ask the membership to agree to something just because something's hard. If you recall, I said that. So we're gonna need some data from you. Obviously, you made reference to talk to our sergeant, something to that effect about the problems with SOG. We haven't heard of any problems from our membership about it. So it sounds like a scheduling issue if we're having problems with, I mean, it sounds like a management function. So, you know, we'd ask for some data. If you could show some data, we'd be happy to look at it.
Thanks.
Proposal 23. So what? Might. 23.
What was it?
It's the
Service rules.
yeah, we might have to. I think we are. Yeah, with proposal 23, we're rejecting that. We think our concern and the reason for that concern is that when we tie things in the contract to the policy, as we know in the last 2 years, has changed multiple times. And so for us, without being able to get a bearing on what contract looks like, because we're at the whims of whenever we get a new IA captain, we get a new policy overhaul. And so that's our concern. We think just cause is fine for that situation. I understand that maybe the word just cause is not involved in our current policy. And I can understand that that would be a concern for management. Just cause is in our contract multiple times. We have a pretty good precedent with it in our contract, and we would like to keep it that way for now.
All right. 24.
24, in regards to Appendix D, the union is agreeable and willing to TA that.
Okay, thank you.
Any others outside?
I think those were the 6 that were proposed this morning. as I can see. Forgive me if this was already addressed earlier. Was the package, so the five, or how many did you propose this morning? Five? The five economic proposals that we gave, are we to expect an answer from those, or is the package, was that kind of an answer? Does that make sense? Or do we assume that those five are rejected and that the package was the answer?
That makes, yeah, that, I mean, that's,
I just want if we're not waiting for something that's not good.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Like I said, our intent was to try to figure out how to streamline things and allow us to start making progress. And so so yes, you can consider that the response. That doesn't mean I need to look back and double check myself, but the changes, I'm just going to double check them here. The revised proposals, the movement was quite incremental. And the one that we believed we could effectively be responsive to was the parental leave. Because we understood what the union was requesting. And so our package did respond in that regard. I mean, I can tell you the shift differentials, the city's not agreeable to that increase. So,
no, that's fine. I mean,
no, but here, I know. Well,
it's fine.
I don't want you to think you shouldn't bring them up anymore, but they're part of, I mean, they're part of a total economic package. And so if we understand that shift differential, the people working the graveyard shift, if that's a significant enough priority, it's helpful for us to understand that it's going to have to come from somewhere else, right? And so what I feel like don't have a very good read on yet is that order of priority amongst the membership.
Okay.
And so because I look, I get that all these things would be great, and I understand why the membership wants to ask for them, but it's not possible. And so
real quick, what's not possible? If we could just clarify.
just to say yes to every economic item.
Okay.
And so from our standpoint, I don't feel like we know yet where the priorities lie for the union.
Okay.
And we're happy to be responsive to those if the shift differential is the thing and we've got to push more into that, we can do that.
As of today, we submitted 5 economic proposals. I will tell you now, those 5 were the ones we boiled down to. Now, can we slice and dice more? Sure. But to give you, if we're talking priority, those were the 5 that we are going to continue with going forward, right? That's why we cut everything else. We went with those. I'm not including VIVA because of our quasi-verbal TA that we had based on what base wages end up being. Otherwise, VIVA would be a part of that top 5. And the sergeant admin pay that we verbally TA to based on base wages. So if we're talking priority, those were the 5 that we had come down to, was base, shift diff, parental leave, not VIVA. What were the other 2? MOU, and then the FTO MOU. Yep. And then the CID. So those were the ones that for us are what we felt strongly about. As time goes on, we might whittle that down more, but that's our priority list. Those are our top 5.
Right.
To be frank.
And that and I appreciate that. I think what we don't yet see as clearly is as between the items that you proposed on what's the most important, what the order of priority is. And so if there's anything that, and I'm not asking for an answer right now, but if you want to have a conversation and sort of clue us in to where the union would like to focus, we can do that. Otherwise, we're kind of shooting in the dark. And I wouldn't want to come back with a proposal that pushes more into one category at the expense of another. And what you were looking at is you wanted more in the category that we didn't push into, and you were willing to give on the other.
Okay.
Caucus for a minute.
Well, so that's where I just want to understand kind of where we're standing right now. So package was the reply. That package was rejected. And so now union needs to reoffer up. Is that what we're looking at currently? Or do you guys need to go caucus for this counter for proposal 19?
Well, that we certainly will have a conversation about at our next caucus. I suppose what might make sense is to take a break. We can talk about that. You can talk about whether you want to give us any more information about how you're looking at the economic items as between each. And then we can come back and have that conversation and see where that leads us.
Okay. 2:45. How much time do you guys need for that?
20 minutes.
Okay.
Sounds about right. Buddy, strongly agree with that.
Mildly disagree.
TAs, excellent. I will have some copies made and then get the copies back to you, or I guess I've been giving you originals.
Yeah.
Copies. I'll give you the originals.
Awesome.
And then we'll load them into the I think we've got a TA area on the SharePoint.
And then the 3 from today, we can expect those
2022 and 24. I'll have those tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On 19, I think I was overly optimistic that we could kind of workshop that whole concept in the time that we had. So we're going to take a little bit more time to try to come up with something that works and that everybody can understand.
Okay.
Because I think, as we talked about, it's not as easy as it sounds at first blush to just sort of get that right. So we'll work on getting that right. I guess the question is, at this point, what else you all might have for today, and or what other sort of work you want to do or need to do before we start tomorrow, and does that affect our start time at all?
Define start time. What do you mean?
9 a.m.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just our
okay.
our 9 o'clock.
I didn't know if you want
You're
to.
like, oh no.
I was like, do you want to go earlier?
No, sorry.
It's like, oh man.
Does it mean we need to move it back at all? So if there's work that needs to be done, we can.
So
want to talk
from
about
our side, we are taking calls in there from the folks. We are going to have to boil down. I think what you say is what we need to do. Boil down to our priorities. Like I said earlier, I think we are agreeable to the idea of a package. And so we are going to have to take a look at that and decide what matters and what frankly doesn't matter as much. And so that's going to take time for us.
We're gonna have a late night is what we're trying to.
That's a good way to put it. Whereas we might be.
But you don't want to delay the start tomorrow?
I don't see a reason why we would need to.
Okay.
At this point, I think we'll be
You're
good.
just offering.
Which is nice. I appreciate it. 9 o'clock is tough sometimes for these night shifts.
There isn't.
Okay, so that's from us on our side. We don't have anything for you right now, but we've got some stuff to grind out. And we will get that back to you guys tomorrow morning.
Okay, that sounds good.
We'll adjourn till 9 tomorrow. Is that correct? All right.